avoid this traffic jam, dreaming of the green pastures I once ran.
Hello again, I'm Miles DeMott, and welcome to another episode of Stuck in Traffic. Today, we have a very special guest. All of our guests are very special, but this one's really special. We have Bob Aldridge, who is involved with the Brevard Music Festival at the Brevard Music Center here in lovely Brevard, and he's agreed to get stuck in traffic with us. So welcome to another episode. And Bob, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
So tell us really briefly what you do with the Music Center, why you're here.
So this is my 20th year. My family lived over in Asheville, in South Asheville, for 20 years. They recently passed away a couple of years ago at 97 and 98 years old. They were at the Deerfield retirement home over there in Asheville. Right. And fortunately enough, one of their neighbors, or their next door neighbor, said, "I've got to take you over to Brevard." And I kept, 1 or 2 years, I kept saying, no, I just was there to see my family for 3 or 4 days. And finally, he got me to go over one day. And he had secretly made a interview with the head guy, not the head artistic director, but he was the sort of managing director of the festival. So like all of a sudden I was being interviewed for this job, which was to be composer in residence over there. And unbeknownst to me, but we had both gone to Yale for our graduate work. And so though no one likes to talk about it, there's a kind of a Yale club, like there is a Harvard club.
Yeah.
And so Yaleys like to hire each other, rightly or wrongly. So anyway, a few weeks later, he said, "Hey, how'd you like to come and become a composer in residence next summer?" He actually asked me for that summer, and I said, no, I was too busy, but I said, I'll do it next summer.
And that was 20 years ago.
And that was 20 years ago. And it was a great way for many years for me to come over on weekends. I go see my folks in Asheville, and then I'd come back here. And it's been like a second home for me.
And your first home is?
In Montclair, New Jersey, which is about 12 miles directly west of New York City.
So you take the Lincoln Tunnel into town.
Lincoln Tunnel and right into town, yes.
So that's as opposed to the GW, which is a treacherous thing, especially when your governor decides to block it. But we won't get into that.
No, let's not.
But anyway, so you live in New York City, or you live in New Jersey, but you ply your trade largely, I'm assuming, in New York City.
Well, I'm a freelance composer, but I also have a full-time professor job at Rutgers University, which is the main university in
New Jersey.
State University of New Jersey.
So you
and
really
now a member of the Big Ten.
You ply your trade in New Jersey. You're 12 miles from the city, but you're just looking and waving from a distance.
Yeah, but I go into the city all the time. My publisher is there for Brevard Music and other people and connections, and when you live that close to New York, you're in there quite frequently.
Okay, so on one of your trips into Manhattan through the Lincoln Tunnel, you pop out at the Javits Center at Penn Station, and you work your way up 8th into Hell's Kitchen, right?
Correct.
Where are you going to stop? You're going to make 2 stops. What are they going to be?
Find the best restaurant in the area.
All right, what's that going to be? What's your favorite restaurant in Hell's Kitchen?
Oh, my. There's so many.
Oh, come on. You can admit it. It's Bar Bacon, right? Up on 8th in lower 50s, it's Bar Bacon, where everything's got bacon on it,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
There's also a couple of great Greek places there.
Yeah.
In Hell's Kitchen. And then a little lower is like a Koreatown on 32nd Street.
Yep.
Right over there on 8th and 9th, and it's fabulous. Every store on that street is West 32nd is Korean restaurant. So
God, it makes me hungry. Are you hungry?
I'm not, but I could. If I kept talking about food, I would be. And I love Korean food. And there's a good place over here that just opened.
A Korean place?
It's Korean Stone Bowl.
Where?
It's right on Asheville Highway.
Really?
You know where the Starbucks is up there? It's right next door. And it's very, very good.
So it's like a bibimbap sort of place. It's got the Korean barbecue and a bibimbap and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. It's the real Korean. It's called Korean Stone Bowl.
That's fabulous.
So their main thing is bibimbap, which is famous, famous Korean bowl dish, and but they have everything.
That's great.
I recommend it.
We'll have to get Jihei to go. She could be a final judge.
Well, Jihei is the one who told me about it.
Really? So she's been there. So that's great.
Yeah, she and Ben go there all the time, I think.
Compared to Manhattan and New Jersey, Brevard is a quiet place.
It's quiet, but there's more going on than you'd think.
So why you've been coming back for 20 years, and you come back for a specific reason with the music festival and all that, which is wonderful. But what do you like about Brevard? I mean, other than the music and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the music festival is kind of a place of its own. It's become one of the best music festivals in the country, really, and maybe even the world, because if you go over there, so many of the population of students is international from Asia, Europe, all over South America. So that's first of all, and it's an incredible place, and they give me an amazing cabin in the woods up above, so I'm up in the mountains. Terrible Wi-Fi, but in a way that's fine because no one can reach me. So that's nice. And then Brevard, the town, is really nice. Everybody always says when they come in for the first time, for the size of this town, you've got great restaurants here. Yeah. And some great culture, some stores that are just, singular. And, but even 20 years ago, the restaurants were better than the town, sort of for the size of the town.
Right. Better than the town warranted, a town of 8,000 people.
Exactly.
That may swell to 12 in the summer, but it's 8,000 people.
Is that how much? I asked someone the other day if it had been growing, because it looks the same to me as 20 years ago. Yeah. Except, more places.
So your cabin in the woods.
It's called the Composer Studio. Someone gave some money 50 years ago.
Then I'm glad it's aptly named, because my question is, as you are in your cabin looking down over Brevard and you've got sort of a composition mind going, what music would that inspire? If you had to create a soundtrack for Brevard, what would that sound like?
Well, I've actually written many pieces up in that studio. It's hard to describe, but the porch is not quite as big as this whole room, but about half that size. Right. And it's just a long, long house, one floor, but the porch covers everything in the front. So I basically live out there. I pull the piano out from back. It's on the porch. I make noise. I compose out there. Wake up with the birds and have a cup of coffee and start writing music. Right. I meet with my students up there mostly. They come up to the cabin. I give them lessons, and then we have classes down on campus.
So you have composition students who are here to learn composition.
Yeah. This year there are 24 really outstanding composers from all over. It goes from high school, college, and graduate school. So we have people from like the Juilliard School, schools all over, North Carolina schools, but all over from California and Texas.
Eastman?
And then
any other Eastman grants here?
And Asian students. We've got 2 or 3 students from China.
Huh. Wow.
And one young woman from China is in love with bluegrass, so I should take her over here if there's bluegrass. You let me know when there is.
We will, because
she's just infatuated with, and she was showing me some of the Chinese instruments that are similar to bluegrass instruments. And she showed me a video of this Chinese bluegrass band in Beijing. Huh. It's amazing.
Chinese bluegrass. Next on Stuck in Traffic, Chinese bluegrass, because why not? Anyway, so my question is, bluegrass, all of these influences, these cultural influences, have you ever heard of a cellist named Yo-Yo Ma?
Sure.
Okay. Didn't know. Just be. He was the cellist, and I forget the guy's name who actually wrote the piece, but there is a composition called Appalachia Waltz.
Yeah, that's Mark O'Connor.
Mark O'Connor, who wrote it. Yeah.
He's a friend of mine, yes.
And that is, that's not necessarily part of the reason I moved here, but there is and I'm asking you as a composer because I'm making this up, but it's almost like a banjo has the fifth string on a banjo is a drone string. So in that composition, there is a drone string that works through that as a narrative thread works through that entire piece.
Yeah, sure.
So, and that's one of the, I've told my children, if you do any sort of service after my body reaches room temperature, I'd like for you to play this music because it is it reminds me of something that I would envision you writing on that porch that you have described, because it is serene and yet there's a call to action. There is all the while it tells another story, but then draws you back through the drone string to remind you of the peace and serenity, but then challenges you another. Is that the sort of music that you would that Brevard inspires?
I write a little bit differently, but last week I had a piece on the festival called Carolinian Dances, and I wrote it for violin and piano, and it's had great success. And some of it I wrote up in the cabin there. Huh. It's a theme with variations, but some of them are very bluegrass. And Jihei played the piano, and this concertmaster from London played the violin part. And they gave a sensational performance.
So does the Music Center find a fairly receptive audience in Brevard? Because I'm assuming it swells beyond the usual population. People come in from all over the place.
From all over.
Yeah, just to be in the audience.
Yeah, just like this guy from Asheville that was my parents' neighbor. He was on the board. He came over. He was from Alabama, a lawyer from Alabama, but then retired up here. And he's the one that brought me over that day. You
remember his name?
George Howell. George Howell. Huh. And he, he must be 95 or 6 now. I haven't seen him this summer yet. But the record you're talking about, Appalachian Waltz, is 3, Mark O'Connor, Yo-Yo Ma, and Edgar Meyer, who's an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
And it came up because this Chinese woman was playing. We have all our students play music, their own music, and then music of their influences. And she actually played Appalachian Waltz, one of the numbers from there. And so it gave me a chance to talk. I know Mark well. I've known him for 15 or 20 years. And he's a superb violinist. And, all of those guys, of course, Yo-Yo Ma, but those other guys are fabulous technicians, meaning some people look at bluegrass as, they're sort of good, but they can't really play. Their technique is not that great, and it's totally wrong. Particularly those 2 guys, plus Yo-Yo, they could do anything.
Right.
And have done anything. And Mark has written concertos and played with, big orchestras, and Edgar too. So they're both just like world-class musicians.
Have they ever played here?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Mark comes every couple of summers.
Huh. I'll have to.
I'll let you know.
Let me know, because I'd like to catch that. Yeah, and Jihei's husband, Ben, is the one who introduced me to that piece of music.
Oh, Appalachian Waltz.
Appalachian Waltz.
Yeah, that's great.
It is. It's you. And as a composer, that there is music that you hold, that you draw from. And I'm not a composer; I'm a writer. But it is a piece of music that I hold and I draw from in a very weird way. And Ben introduced me to that, and it's almost a sacred tune for me, which is fascinating that music has that hold on us.
Yeah.
And it's also wonderful that Brevard has this world-class thing up on the hill where people learn the workings of this and
everything.
Learn and more than perpetuate it, they celebrate it and they live into it. And so it's an interesting part of Brevard's culture that this thing exists.
And it's different than other music festivals because the traditions of Carolina and bluegrass and folk music and the religious, everything imbues the festival with this. It's classical music, whatever that is. I prefer to call it concert music because it's played in concert, live.
I like to just call it music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The some of the terms were long-haired music. That was, like that was in the like 1930s and 40s, when the people that had long hair were the musicians,
Right.
classical musicians,
Right.
which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a long hair. You know?
Yeah. So every summer, when you're pulling back into town and I'll give you an example. One of my favorite views is when I'm coming in from my house and I come up to what I call the red light, which is the Main Street red light. And
That's a long red light.
It is.
Maybe the longest I've ever seen.
So, but out of every window, windshield, rear window, and both side windows, I have mountains. And it is I guess I'm drawn to that. So when you come back into Brevard every summer from New Jersey, from New York, from great places that are, legendary places in the American fabric, what is it that plucks a string in your heart about returning to Brevard? Because you keep coming back.
Well, it's home, and my father was raised outside of Boone on a farm.
Huh.
And, he became a minister, but before that, he ran away and enlisted in the war like people did. He lied about his age, and he volunteered to be a B-19 gunner, one of those guys
In a
that
turret.
sits in the bubble.
Yeah.
And there was a 90% fatality rate. But the night before he was shipping out to B-19 gunnery school in Texas or whatever, they found out he could type. And they needed typists more than they needed B-19 gunners. So he spent the war, the only reason I'm here is he spent the war in England typing for the 8th Air Force. But he's a Carolina boy. He went to he came back and on the,
The GI
Bill.
Yeah.
He went to Carolina. He was the first one of his family to go to college. He was a Baptist, but he became a minister and ultimately a Presbyterian minister. And he was also an amateur musician, as was my mother. So we always had music in the house. And we lived in the South for a while. And he ended up going to Princeton Seminary and then ultimately teaching there and getting a church in the middle of town. So I grew up a lot of my years in Princeton, with the university, nice university town. So I sort of south and northern, but I've always lived in the north. So when I come down here, it's like a second home. And once I got this Brevard job, it was really like every summer, the last 20 summers,
You get to come home.
So like you with the red light, realizing you're there. Yeah, when I drive up the road to my cabin, it's a gravelly road and it's kind of a secret place. You only go up there if you're, have a house there. Right. And I know I'm there and I can feel the pull of the South and my family tradition there and, everything else. My brother lives outside of Boone and my nephew plays in Asheville every night. He's a fantastic fiddler. And so I go over and see him and, it really is the South in North Carolina is fantastic place and my second home.
Lightning round. Beethoven or Wagner?
Beethoven.
Why?
Well, I love them both, but Wagner really only wrote opera. Beethoven wrote everything.
Beethoven, even number or odd numbered symphonies?
Odd number.
Why?
Hardly anybody could get past 9 symphonies without dying.
Right, but do you prefer the even number or the odd numbered symphonies?
Of Beethoven.
Of
yeah,
Beethoven.
the odd, yeah.
Why?
3, 5, 7, 9.
3, 5, 7, and 9. Do you like one? I've never been a fan of one.
It's fine, but it's not fully Beethoven. It's he's sort of still learning and imitating Haydn and whatever. He was actually a late bloomer. His first published opuses where he was about 30.
Right.
There were people like Mendelssohn who wrote things that were amazing when he was 16.
And Mozart, who wrote them when he was 12.
Yeah.
Or 10 or whatever, yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So this if you had to compose, let's say you were composing a call to action or something that for Brevard or for Transylvania County, and you wanted to distill it into the waterfalls and all the stuff that, Transylvania County is, okay, and you wanted to incorporate, as I was talking about earlier, a drone string. What instrument Would it be the oboe? Would it be the alto sax? What would it be? A violin?
Yeah,
that would pull us back to. Okay, so that would be the drone string. What would be what instrument would you play the waterfalls? What would be the waterfalls?
probably harp, maybe.
Huh.
The beautiful sound of harp has all those arpeggios and everything that
Right.
they play. So harp would be great.
How would you depict mountain biking?
I'm not sure.
Percussion?
I've never been mountain much. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Maybe a xylophone. Is that a real instrument, or is that
Yeah,
kindergarten?
that's a real instrument.
That's a real
That's a
instrument.
mallet.
Yeah.
Percussion.
Okay.
It's
So maybe
percussion.
xylophone would be
Xylophone or marimba.
nice. Marimba. That would be festive. I mountain bike, so I'm looking
see.
for the orchestral equivalent of me, because I would find that song compelling. So we talked about how classical music. I don't know that classical music is I just call it music. One of our earlier guests, I was trying to say, all right, do you gravel bike ride or whatever? And he says, we just ride bikes. So in the same way that you just ride bikes, regardless of where you're going, music is just music.
Duke Ellington said there are two types of music: good music and bad music.
That's it.
That's it.
So,
I love that.
but your path has been it's not countercultural, because classical, what people call classical, think of as long hair, classical music, is still very much alive. And so to what do you attribute that? How is that still happening in the age of hip hop and
Yeah, there are more popular forms of music, and for sure. And I think it's just because kids are continually trained in the position. Even people who don't have much familiarity with classical or concert music, they want their kids to play an instrument, and there are less and less support for music in the school system. Unfortunately, we're feeding. If you go over to Brevard, everybody there started their instrument when they were 3 or 4 years old, and were highly trained, and they're from all over the world. And you got your tiger moms in China teaching these, and the violin, the string training in China is amazing. And those players, you look at half the orchestras in the country, they're populated by a lot of Asian players, Korea, China, now even Vietnam, and other places where the classical tradition has really taken off.
why is that? Why is it still a thing? Because is it because of the discipline? Is it because of that it's like golf? Learning how to play the violin or piano lessons or all this. That's just not easy. Kids just want.
No, it's a discipline, and studies have shown that kids that play instrument, even if they never become professional musician, it helps brain function in ways. Having the discipline of playing an instrument and just practicing every day is just what a great way to raise your children, to have a discipline like that. I see people where I teach that are non-musicians and then musicians. The musical students are really much more mature in certain ways, just because of this discipline of having to play an instrument, being in an orchestra, taking, cues from a conductor, having a teacher that teaches them a tradition. There's several different traditions with each instrument, and it's just it's a fantastic way to grow up. Even if you don't become a professional musician, for instance, at MIT, which is the greatest technological school in the world.
It's a trade school. Let's be honest. It's just a trade school. It's a fine trade school, but it's just a trade school. Yeah.
It's a trade school of geniuses.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But they have one of the best orchestras of students and professors, because almost all of the MIT students have, raised on an instrument.
And let's not forget that the lead of the band called Boston was a grad student at MIT when he created the synthesizer out of whole cloth and brought a whole new oeuvre of music into being.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did at MIT. They create stuff, which is kind of fun. So Brevard being much smaller, is there much of a connection to the college? I've never known. Is there
yes, the opera program is over there and uses the campus. And before we built Parker Hall, which is over on the campus over here, which is a wonderful chamber music hall. We used to use the Brevard campus for years for the chamber music that goes on at night. So you have your big orchestra concerts and things like that there. We used to do the chamber music during the week. So when Jihei and this concertmaster from London played my piece, that was at Parker Hall.
Right.
But a few years ago, that would have been at Brevard College.
So I've not been in Parker Hall, but have you ever heard of Chautauqua?
Of course.
Okay, so we used to have a place at Chautauqua, so we spent a lot of time in the summers at Chautauqua, and there was a wonderful chamber music hall that acoustically was so live. I mean, you could hear a mouse fart in the corner, in every corner. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I love Chautauqua.
Is Parker Hall the same way, where it's
Similar? Yeah, beautiful hall. It holds about 300 or 400.
Yeah.
And it's right on that little pond there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just gorgeous, and the doors open to the pond, so you can see back there, and it doubles. It was designed so you could lower the seats and have a fundraising dinner there right on the pond, and so it's an exceptional place.
Lightning round. Why would somebody choose the viola over the violin?
Because they more opportunities. Viola jokes are sort of a big thing in classical music.
I would imagine, yeah.
People play viola because they're not good enough violinists.
It's kind of like being the bass guitar player in a rock band.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then that said, of course, they're great musicians.
Did Boy Wonder play the bass guitar in the rock band? Yeah.
But, I mean, they're great bass players like Paul McCartney.
Sure.
And then they're great violists, and
so they do exist.
They do exist, but violists are the butt of jokes because, it's often like they're the last ones picked on the team.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like trombonists in the horn section, I would assume.
Yeah, except they're great trombonists too. Yeah, but violists are like, they have to, be strong-willed to take all the viola jokes that.
I've never understood that. I always found the viola to be more size-wise. It was easier to fat finger, to fret.
Absolutely.
So the trumpet, the trombone players in orchestras, and I'm a huge fan of orchestras. I love to go to Atlanta, for example, and
the symphony there.
Symphony is extraordinary, and it's just I love which is part of the reason I love chamber music. It's a tactile experience. You can hear the horsehair going over the strings, for God's sake. And there's a cello being in the human register. So it's like you're in the womb when you are listening to, who is it, Elgar, who does all the wonderful cello music? So to me, it's like coming home. But the trombone players, to me, always seem like they peaked at band camp in high school. And I may have that all wrong.
No, there are certain players like drummers, trombone players, certain instruments where you can get really good. I mean, it's not unusual to have an 18 or 19-year-old in the Atlanta Symphony in one of those jobs as a violist maybe, or
because it was just more opportunity.
Or a bass player. Yeah, there's more opportunities. And then if you gravitate towards like the acoustic bass, and you can get good at it quite early. And, in jazz, it's legendary to have a 16-year-old drummer out on the road with all these. And, with these guys who have bands, they're always looking for young players, of course, who are cheaper to pay.
Yes.
And to take on the road with them. But also they're great. They're great players. And I've gotten a lot of friends in the jazz world who are like that. They never even went to college. They barely finished high school because they were out on the road with Maynard Ferguson or any number of people.
Lightning round, Miles Davis or Thelonious Monk?
Ooh, tough choice. It's a tie.
I pride myself on tough choices, but you got to pick one. Who would you pick? To invite to dinner, to ask questions, who would you pick?
Miles would be more fun. I think Thelonious Monk was, mentally he was on the spectrum, I think, and I'm not saying that as a criticism. He's a genius, total genius. But I don't think he'd say much at a dinner party.
Oh, it's an interesting distinction.
Whereas, Miles would probably have some very funny stories. And,
I'm going to go with you because we share the name, so I think it would have to play out that way.
Of
anyway, if you could wave a magic wand as opposed to a conductor's baton and add one thing to the Brevard Music Center or to that community, and even ask it of this community, the larger Brevard community, to make it happen, what would that be?
Add to Brevard, probably because I'm a teacher, an abundance of scholarship money. Like, when Bloomberg gave Johns Hopkins $1 billion, that will and has changed the whole nature of the university, giving every student a full scholarship. That's what
makes a difference.
That's remarkable.
What's the school in Manhattan that has always done that? You know what I'm thinking of? It's like Union something or other. It's an art school, but they also train. Anyway, it'll come to me at 3:00 this morning. I've always thought that was interesting that it's a free school. I mean, it's tough to get into.
Yeah.
But it's a free, the college education is free. It's something Union. Anyway, so scholarships for more students to come through. How many students come through here in a summer?
350 usually.
From all over the world.
From all over the world. And everyone gets some scholarship.
Right.
But the tuition is pretty expensive now. It's $9,000 for the summer.
Huh.
And, some people just can't come from, if they're paying for college too and whatever. So, but Brevard is fairly generous with, some of the best students. I mean, I'm in the situation of saying, look, this person needs a full ride, or this person, and we've done pretty well. It used to be 20 years ago, composers got almost nothing in scholarship money. But now we compete with everyone else. I mean, people will tell you it's an orchestral festival, meaning, the thing that Keith Lockhart, who conducts the Boston Pops, has for 25 years. He wants to build a major orchestra festival, and he has. But the composition program has really grown from 20 years ago.
Who runs Tanglewood? I thought he did that.
He's there because he's on the Boston Symphony staff,
right.
And he conducts up there and, does the July 4th concerts. Right. But he's not the director of the Boston Symphony. He's the Boston Pops.
Pops are different, yeah.
Boston is virtually run by, in the arts by the Boston Symphony and the Boston Pops, which raises a huge amount of money, playing more popular things, and they fill the hall all the time, and it's world renowned. And it helps support the symphony, So if you're another arts organization in Boston, it's almost impossible to get off the ground because so many donors gravitate towards the Boston Symphony or the Pops or Tanglewood.
So in your experience at the Brevard Music Center, do you remember any students that have come through and then have gone into the world as composers?
Oh, many, yes, yeah.
And you see the movie, instead of John Williams, it says whoever your student was who did the music for that Star Wars film or that Harry Potter film or whatever.
Yeah, we've had a lot of successes. And what I always say to them every summer, the students, I say, look, our job is to get you to the next level, whatever that is. If it's high school, getting you into the best college or conservatory. If it's a conservatory, or if you're college, we want to get you into the best master's program or the best audition for an orchestra. Start there, on and on, so that you're whatever you want to do, we're going to put you up to the next level.
So in music composition, there is a discernible career path.
Many, yes. Everything from being a professor, like I went through school, I was, wrote music. In college, I played in rock bands. I did jazz. I did all kinds of things. And then taught, and then eventually said, hey, becoming a professor at a university is a pretty good gig because it's about 6 months a year of work when you boil it down. Summer's off. The pay is, not great compared to the corporate world, but it's steady, and the benefits are amazing, and the time off it gives you a lot of time off to do your own thing. So if you're a composer, the main thing you need is time.
Yeah.
You need time alone in a room to write. And, the people like Leonard Bernstein, one of the greatest musicians of the last 100, or more years, one of the things he had was because he was a great composer as well as conductor. But as he became more famous, he had less and less time of his own. And therefore, his music kind of petered out, because everybody wanted a piece of him all over the world. And you have to, no matter how famous you are, you have to want to spend time alone in a room. You can't compose if there's a cocktail party going on or, any kind of social activity, or if there's a rehearsal going on in the next room, or, It's just, you need that time.
Lightning round, Gershwin's or Copland?
Gershwin.
Why? And George or Ira? Who was the?
I love them both.
Who swung the bigger bat?
Oh, George, of course.
Okay.
But Ira's great too. I mean, but Copland, Gershwin, you're talking about two of the giants. But had Gershwin lived, he died at 36 or something, he would have been like a Beethoven in American culture. I mean, 36. He was just starting to work. He was a millionaire young, writing Broadway shows, right? Yeah. But then he started doing classical music. And he wrote, most famously, Rhapsody in Blue, but then he was, Concerto in F, he got out of writing shows and into classical music. He went over to Europe famously and knocked on Maurice Ravel's door and said, "Can I study with you?" And Ravel asked him famously, "How much do you make a year?" And Gershwin told him, it was probably like several million, which seems like a billionaire now.
Right.
And Ravel said, "It seems like I should be studying with you."
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
And then he wrote Porgy and Bess, which is still, one of the best operas ever. And then he was starting to work, he was going to do a collaboration with George Balanchine at New York City Opera. He had all these plans to just inhabit the classical music world, the concert music world. And then he got a brain hemorrhage and died, something that could have been cured now. Mm. And it was just an incredible loss when you think about what he had done just at 36 years, and then where he was going. Copland lived to his 90s,
Yeah, but the reason I brought up Copland was, where did Copland grow up? He didn't grow up.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, he grew up in Brooklyn. And like rodeo and all of the stuff that he did that Beef, It's What's for Dinner or whatever, all the stuff that uses Copland's music, the Western stuff.
He was never there.
He never lived there.
Never went to visit.
Right. And so, for somebody to come in to write something about Brevard or the Western plateau of the mountains of North Carolina or the Appalachian Mountains or whatever, that's why I always think of Copland, because it doesn't matter if you've been there or not. I guess it's like writing.
It's one of the great things about the arts is you can inhabit a place or create a sound not having been there,
right.
Imagining it. So Copland sort of imagined this what music of the West was,
right.
And it became
that there was no music of the West.
In Hollywood, everybody, everything went that way. So now, if you're writing about the West, you've got it.
You're gonna pull from Copland.
Like Copland, yeah.
Which is just stunning.
It's remarkable. Me. Yeah, there are various examples of that where a great artist will write something that's about nothing they knew personally, but they somehow are able to imagine.
Yeah. Well, the antithesis of that is what Faulkner used to say, which is write about what you know.
Yes, right.
Write about where you are. Write about Yoknapatawpha County, which is, where you work at the post office. Okay.
Not only Faulkner, but in general, that's taught in almost every writing class. Write what you know.
Yeah.
And I say that too. And when I was in school, unfortunately, it was much more didactic. You either went with Stravinsky or Schoenberg, or there was a much more sort of, you had to be a disciple of somebody. Now in American music, it's so eclectic, And everyone gets their sources from so many things that, write what you know. And as a composer, that's what I always tell students, that now my students are, if you come up there, their music is influenced by punk rock, by, jazz, of course, for years, rock and roll, all kinds of things, and that's great because it's not this sort of didactic way it used to be. And America is such an eclectic culture. Why shouldn't the arts reflect that eclecticism?
I had tickets several months ago to the Atlanta Symphony, and they were playing with the Violent Femmes. And I was like, okay, well, we've reached a cultural crossroads now where all of these forces are coming back together, and it's wonderful music. I mean, but it draws from all these weird influences. So, lightning round, Led Zeppelin or the Beatles?
Oh, Beatles, but I love Led Zeppelin too.
Why would you choose the Beatles?
Just the greatest, most influential rock group in history. I think pretty much hands down. There are people that don't like them, but they, in their short span of like 8 years, they went from being kind of influenced by Buddy Holly and people like that to like a completely other sound that they virtually created by themselves in the studio.
Is that them, or what was the guy's name?
George Martin.
George Martin, yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, George Martin never would have been anything but kind of a good Hollywood producer, but
unless they came along.
So he did he was the one that said, let's use harpsichord in this number rather than, or let's use, for Eleanor Rigby, let's use a string quartet rather than a rock band. Okay, he could do that, but then they were the ones that wrote the music. So
I guess that's one of the attractions to me to classical music, or actually to orchestral music or performative, that where it's just humans playing instruments. The live music to me is always live. I got to back up. Orchestral music is different from like bluegrass or other, where you can have a steel guitar that does a different sound, or you got pedals that can make guitars do different things and all that. But orchestral music, you're playing an oboe. That's it. And the guy, so your own, it's this collection of people who are, their instrument, the music is multidimensional, but the instrument is one-dimensional. You're contributing this thing to this, and there are, how many, 70-something of you, all contributing your own thing.
That's what's amazing about the orchestra. If you take each instrument has its own history.
Yeah.
The oboe coming from Middle East and having so many iterations, string instruments coming from Arab countries, in Africa, and the history of how they all coalesce, the instrument itself, the violin being made by these genius 17th century Italian string makers, and they, all of a sudden the sound of the orchestra comes together, all these instruments, all their history, all coming together, and the sound of that is like nothing else to me. Right. You could say, oh, computer technology, that's the greatest. The AI, that's the greatest. To me, the greatest technology ever created was the orchestra. Huh. And it's continually evolving, too. New instruments come in and out, but the sound of all those instruments together there's nothing like it. And it's all acoustic. It's all,
Right.
I mean, you can amplify this and that, and that's fine, but
you don't alter the sound. You don't apply pedals or any of that.
It's what comes out.
It's what comes out, and it's human. It is a human construct, but it's also, I like the fact that it's concert music as you described it, because it's humans acting in concert, which is also stunning technology.
That everybody gets together.
Yeah.
And someone leads them, and they
follow.
Yeah. And what I do, it's still what we do as composers is it's in our heads, and then we learn how to write it down, and then we write it down and we give it to the players, and they learn how to play it. And that's still, to me, a magical thing. Like, and then it's in front of an audience, and
they like it.
And they like it. And, they still most people don't understand how it gets from here to the concert hall.
Right.
Right? Because it's kind of a mysterious process.
Because before it went from here to here, it didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
And now it does. So you literally birth these things.
Exactly.
And it's, I don't know that, sure, AI does wonderful things. And AI has reached a point where it can recreate dogs playing poker, which is apparently a phenomenal thing in the art world. But it cannot recreate, although it can digitally, it can play back. But I don't know that it can create the same synthesis of human activities.
Well, it's going to be a while before AI can make a great symphony.
Right.
I mean, it can play the
existing. It can reiterate or regurgitate
it can
what is
sample all the instruments brilliantly. And as technology moves on, the digital sampling of these instruments gets better and better. And during COVID, for example, when nobody could rehearse, I would have a couple of my students who use really sophisticated digital technology. I hired them to do the orchestra music for these students who are applying to grad school because they couldn't submit anything but what's called MIDI or digital.
Yeah.
So, and most MIDI sounds are pretty bad, but the high level ones are, most people would have a hard time telling the difference between one and the other. So that was a great use. They could apply with pieces and music that sounded sort of like real music, but it was all digital. And in years, I don't think it's going to replace orchestras or whatever, but, all these claims about what AI is going to do, but still it can't, that human element, it can't really, I don't think it's going to replace it that easily, just like ChatGPT can't write a Faulkner novel.
right. But it can regurgitate what he already wrote.
Exactly. Yeah, it can help you write for foreign students. It can write an application letter or something like that, but not a great poem or great novel.
So lightning round, if you were to create your opus and you were looking for the perfect conductor to bring it into the world, Daniel Barenboim or Andre Previn?
Probably Barenboim, but I love Previn too.
Why Barenboim?
Just he,
You want a Chicago sound like a pizza, or that you want that feel to it, or you want a London sort of British sort of thing going?
Yeah, but Andre Previn was a great jazz pianist too.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah, you could listen to. He was a disciple of Art Tatum and people like that.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. You can go on Google or YouTube and just Google his name and jazz. He was a very accomplished jazz player.
I did not know.
Even more so than Bernstein or people like that. Huh. Yeah, but great classical conductor. Also worked in the Hollywood studios. And
Previn?
He wrote a book, for years. And he wrote a really funny book about his years in Hollywood. And, because there was all this classical music being created for movies in the 40s
soundtracks.
and 50s.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the movie The Graduate, which didn't use a classical
Simon
score,
and Garfunkel.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
So, and then all of a sudden the gates broke down and, everybody started using everything. But really it wasn't, that was like 1968 or 69.
Yeah, it was.
So until then, every Hollywood studio had orchestras and, musicians on staff and conductors on staff. And Previn he was an arranger, conductor, and then ultimately a composer. He did the film music. I wrote the opera based on Elmer Gantry, and that's the one that won the Grammy a few years ago. But Sinclair Lewis wrote the novel in 1927. Andre Previn wrote the music to the movie that Burt Lancaster was in, he won the Academy Award for in 1960. But Previn wrote the score.
I never knew that.
And it's a pretty good score.
Huh.
But very American, but he was one of those people that didn't get as much acclaim as Bernstein, but he was like one of those all-around musicians that doesn't exist as much anymore, which is really a shame because, someone like Bernstein was a great composer, conductor, arranger, like in all different genres from movies to symphonic to everything.
So do you encourage your composition students that are coming through?
Yes.
Play it all. Yeah. Try to do arrangements for a bluegrass band. Anything you can do to broaden your scope, you would encourage that?
Absolutely. And now lots of students, are writing like video game music. Video games have become big stuff and big business and like money-making business. In some ways it's eclipsed, film music even as a career path. And so, I've never played video games, but I've had students that go into the business and have made a lot of money doing video game music because I guess the whole thing is in video, you try to get to the next level in all these games. You're at level 1 and there's a certain music for level 1. And then level 2, you get a whole other type of music. And then level 3. So you need people to write this music,
right?
For these different levels. And it's a very, I've had some really talented students who, love that gaming thing and then write the music for it, which you need. You'd be hard-pressed to find a video game that had no musical score in it. So, so that's another career path that students are taking. And it's presenting, whatever one thinks a video game is a viable thing or just a, overrated. Some of the music that comes out of there is really pretty sophisticated and good. Just like film music,
Yeah.
But I think it's easier to get into video game music. The film music industry is almost impossible, knowing lots of colleagues and students who have tried to break into the film music world. It's really, it's really difficult.
How old is John Williams now?
In his 90s.
And he's still working.
He's still working. But you see, with someone like that, he writes something a little bit on paper, whatever other people take it, they arrange it, so he gets a lot of help and always has, which is fine. Look, he's a great musician, deserves all the acclaim, but somebody like that has a huge amount of help. And, he basically writes something that's fairly, might be good, but he writes the tune or whatever. Somebody else takes that and arranges it and, makes it for 100 players.
It's like a Michener novel or a Patterson novel. They do the same thing.
Right.
Here's the idea now. You guys run off and write it, and we'll put my name on it, and everybody will get a check.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's the way it is in the art world, too.
Okay, so you're sitting in a Starbucks. This is the last question because Boy Wonder is about to go to sleep against the wall up there. So you're sitting at a Starbucks in outside of Rutgers, and somebody, a student or a colleague walks up and says, "Hey, haven't seen you. Where you been?" And you say, "I've been, in Brevard." And they ask, "What's that about?" Give me 2 sentences. What's your elevator story about Brevard?
Well, first of all, a lot of people know where it is, whereas 20 years ago in the North, almost nobody knew where it was. A lot of people are more familiar with the music festival, not so much the town, but of course the music festival, like Aspen or Tanglewood or whatever. So it's become, in my 20 years here, it's become a lot more identifiable. I just say it's a great place for, creating and playing and performing and listening to music. I mean, you walk through that campus every day, you'll hear 5, 6 types of music just in your little mile
through the practice huts, as we used to call them at Chautauqua. They had practice huts.
The practice huts.
And you walk through the practice huts at night and hear all the students, and it's just its own little symphony. It's a great thing.
Exactly.
Well, Bob, thank you for joining us. Again, we've had Bob with us from the Brevard Music Festival, and we've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for getting stuck in traffic with us.
Thank you so much, Miles.
So we will be back with another compelling episode of Stuck in Traffic. Hope you'll join us. Thanks for joining us today, and be good.
Oh, I'm stuck here in this traffic jam, dreaming of the green pastures I once ran. The road ahead's a snail's slow dance. This highway's robbed me of my chance.